In this episode, we're taking a look at all the new tools Dungeon Masters have at their disposal in Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Welcome, Dungeon Masters. I'm McLaughlin.
And I'm Monty Martin.
And we are
the Dungeon Dudes.
So on today's episode, we are taking a look at Xanathar's Guide to Everything, specifically Chapter 2, the Dungeon Master's Toolkit.
This is my favorite section in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Of course the spell section might be a close
spell section's my favorite. But
if you're like me and you mostly run the game, you're always looking for new ways to make your game even better. And Xanathar's Guide to Everything in the Dungeon Master's Tools section is second probably only to our videos in Great Advice for DMs.
That's right.
But it also has a huge expansion of many of the subsystems in the Dungeon Master's Guide that weren't totally detailed. So I think it's an indispensable resource for giving you ideas on how to run encounters and design them and build them, whether it's a random encounter or a very carefully crafted combat encounter featuring a complex trap. Adjudicating, giving out magic items.
There's also a beautiful section on tools.
And how to use them in your game.
Yeah.
Not just tools for Dungeon Masters, but how to use tools and tool proficiency in your game.
Yes.
As well as a really great smattering of smaller rule subsystems as well, covering things like falling and sleeping in armor. So let's talk about some of our favorite things in this section.
Yeah.
Well, I think the one that you're probably most excited about, Kelly, is the rules for tools.
The rules for tools. Yes, there's a whole section in here on tool proficiencies and how you can properly use them in your game. I found that beforehand, if you were looking at the player's handbook, there were a lot of tools that you could acquire, like brewer's kits or cooking utensils and things like that, and being proficient in these.
Well, the only one that seemed to ever matter was being proficient in thieves' tools.
Thieves' tools. I also would say the disguise kit.
Or a climber's kit as well could come up. But like the applications for the other tools really wasn't covered in any specifics.
Yeah.
But like this chapter is filled with really awesome ideas on how to make toolkits relevant. Like you can use your proficiency with cook's utensils to prepare meals during short rests that give your party more recovery during a short rest.
Or like the brewer's kit now has an option where you're more proficient in discovering poison in somebody's drink or persuading people at a bar or tavern.
Yeah, and it also says how the toolkit's proficiencies might apply to other skill checks.
Yeah.
So if a character isn't necessarily proficient, say, in a history check, but they're looking at the history of a castle, their proficiency in mason's tools might give them knowledge about the way the castle was constructed, right? So I think it's a really worthwhile section to have a deep read over, to get yourself as a DM thinking about more ways that you can get your players using their skills and proficiencies at the table. There's also a really handy chapter in here helping you learn about the different ways that spells are targeted that cover an area if you're using it on a grid.
Yeah, I found that very helpful. I was looking over that and just clears up a lot of the air there.
Now, the first really big section that I want to talk about that I absolutely love, and I loved it since it was first previewed in Unearthed Arcana, is the encounter building rules in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. One of my personal beefs with 5th edition D&D has been that the encounter building rules are a little bit tricky to build balanced encounters, because it doesn't really tell you what it means, what is a deadly encounter, what is a medium difficulty encounter, and it makes it difficult to make an encounter with multiple creatures of various different challenge ratings. Xanathar's Guide to Everything includes some awesome tables to help you rebuild encounters so that you can really carefully calibrate them. I think the most important thing it tells you is how high a CR monster to use if you want to have that solo boss fight monster. In most cases, you have to use a monster that's a CR 5 higher than your party to make it a reasonable challenge. But it scales up because higher level characters can deal with more of a gap.
There is also another wonderful section here that kind of goes over how to reward magic items, which I also find very amusing because Monty spent days and days writing his own version of this before this book came out.
Yeah, and it's totally based on what's in the Dungeon Master's Guide already. It's just that in the Dungeon Master's Guide, you got a bunch of random tables. So if you wanted to pick out specifically, like, I want to give out how many magic items that my party gets instead of rolling randomly, that information wasn't really in the DMG, but now it's in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. The really crazy upshot about this is that Xanathar's Guide to Everything comes out and says, D&D doesn't assume that your players ever get any magic items. But as a good baseline, it separates magic items into minor items that are consumable and major items that have a big impact, like your magic swords, your staves of power, your holy avengers, things like that. And the crazy thing about it is that in 5th edition D&D, Xanathar's Guide to Everything recommends that player characters basically only find one magic item of each rarity in an entire campaign. But encounters aren't everything, because a big part of this chapter is not just random encounters, which are amazing, but downtime activities, things to do between encounters. This was something, again, that was touched on the Dungeon Master's Guide, but is vastly expanded in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything rules. It's really cool. Like, it's got minor things in here like gambling, pit fighting, relaxing, committing crimes. There's also, for those that want to, there's also rules in here for crafting magic items and buying magic items, which are somewhat compatible with the other rules in the awarding magic items section, but they kind of do exist on their own. And carousing.
Carousing. Always fun to roll on. Another section that I really liked is traps.
Yes! Love the trap system. It really makes a bunch of really great rules for a trap that's like an entire combat encounter that actually rolls for initiative itself and like evolves over the course of the fight. I really love them.
I read one that was a long hallway that had spinning blades, stomping pillars, and then a gem at the end that caused fear, which would cause the players to run backwards into the stomping pillars or blades.
I like the one that's also a long hallway.
Oh, yeah.
But when you get halfway through it, a portal opens at both ends of the hallway, and a spinning ball, an iron ball comes out, and it comes down the hallway. But the portal's linking the hallway to itself, so the iron ball keeps running down the pipe.
Yeah. So amazing rules in here as well.
Yeah.
On top of that, there are a bunch of little paragraphs that just kind of deal with a whole bunch of the smaller things that I think needed to be filled out for DMs, like tying knots. Or what were some of the other good ones?
The other ones are the common magic items, which are really minor trinket magic items. Like really fun stuff like the Cloak of Billowing, a helmet that you put on that makes your eyes glow red, and a Wand of Smiles that you can point at someone to force them to smile for 1 minute.
He's using it now.
I am. But the Wand of Smiles, if it breaks, it turns into a Wand of Scowls and makes people frown. It's really cute stuff. So there's both cute things to make your game more fun and really fundamental, almost game-changing rules clarifications in this section of the book. It's really worth a very careful read by every Dungeon Master.
If you haven't gotten the idea yet, both me and Monty absolutely love this book and recommend it to anybody playing D&D 5th edition. So we've just taken an in-depth look at Xanathar's Guide to Everything, mainly the chapter about the Dungeon Master's Toolkit, which is filled with incredible information for any Dungeon Master to use in any game.
I really recommend that DMs give this chapter a really close read, because no matter what type of campaign you're playing, if you're playing D&D 5th edition, you're going to find something in here that you can use, probably even something that you can use in your game next week, if not even just flipping it open and using one of the random encounter tools. It's an indispensable book, probably second only to the Dungeon Master's Guide itself, or Volo's Guide to Monsters, which is the sister book to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Volo's Guide to Monsters is a fantastic tome of new creatures for you to use in your game, and we've got a full review of that book that you can check out right over here.
Or if you're looking for more essential gear that you might want to run your D&D games, we have a video on that right over here.
You can pick up your own copy of this new book by following the links right down below.
Please subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time
in the dungeon.